Mr. Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me just start by saying that part of our colleagues said that, the whole hearing is here so that we could embarrass the president. Let's just be clear. If we wanted to embarrass the president, we would sit back and do nothing and just let him continue to embarrass himself and say that you should drink bleach or disinfectant to cure COVID-19, that he slowed down testing, that it will magically go away, or the absurd statement that he has done more for black people than Abraham Lincoln. So in law, we just say res est loquitur, which means the thing speaks for itself. So instead of trying to embarrass the president, we would just let him continue to do it himself. What we're here today to talk about is the abuse of power and miscarriage of justice. So, Mr. Zelensky, let me just go to you. And I think that I want to follow up on what Mr. Deutsch was talking about, and that is to really understand why Roger Stone got such special treatment, but make sure we focus on the context of his crime. So what his crime was lying to Congress about his dealings with the Trump campaign, one of the convictions, right?
That was one of his crimes, yes.
And the summer before the elections, Stone told the Trump campaign that he had, quote, a plan to save Trump's butt, and he knew how, but to win, but it wouldn't be pretty. Do you recall that?
Yes, Congressman, I think you've replaced the profanity with another one, but that is correct.
Then also, Mr. Zelensky, what was Mr. Stone's plan?
Testimony at trial indicated that this was related to WikiLeaks.
And did you find evidence that Stone communicated with senior levels of the Trump campaign about WikiLeaks releasing stolen information about Trump's opponent?
Yes.
In fact, there are dozens of calls between Stone and the Trump campaign's top officials, right?
That's correct.
Also during that time, did you find evidence that Stone was talking to Trump directly?
Yes.
In fact, witnesses also testified that they were present when Stone spoke to then candidate Trump, right?
Mr. Gates testified to that at trial. Mr. Cohen testified to that for Congress, and Mr. Manafort told that to the special counsel's office.
Did you all find any records of these calls?
As I discussed earlier, it's difficult to know because we can't get content. We can only see call detail records when calls happened. There certainly are calls within that time period, but it's impossible to know the content. Only the people on the calls or anyone that overheard them would know the answer to that.
And why that's so startling is because President Trump's written answers to the special counsel, he denied recalling having any conversations with Stone at all that summer. And he denied being aware Stone was having any conversations with WikiLeaks or anyone on his campaign. Do you remember that?
You've accurately described the president's answers. Yes, Congressman.
Mr. Zelensky, have Roger Stone and Donald Trump been friends for over 30 years?
The evidence introduced at trial showed that to be the case. And Ms. Stone, and I believe the president has acknowledged that as well publicly.
So you found evidence from multiple sources that Roger Stone regularly communicated with the Trump campaign about the stolen information. You also found evidence from multiple sources that Roger Stone talked to President Trump, his friend of 30 years, directly during this time. And you have phone records corroborating all of this, but yet the president doesn't remember speaking to Roger Stone. And then when you recommend 7 to 9 years for Stone's crimes, all of a sudden your department gets pressure from the top to give Stone an unprecedentedly favorable treatment. Is that a correct characterization?
Congressman, I want to be very careful on how you describe the phone records that would give corroboration. We have call detail records. They don't give the full universe of possible calls because we only have them for the number that we have. So if, for example, a conversation took place on a line that we had not subpoenaed, or someone else's phone, we wouldn't have them. And as I said before, we do not know the content of the calls. We know only what people testified. So I want to be very careful as to what we say about call detail records.
That's fair. But let me tell you, as a former defense attorney and lawyer, it's clear to me what happened here. Roger Stone got special treatment because he was covering up the president's misconduct, and the attorney general made it possible. The double standard here is absolutely sinful. If you're the president's longtime pal, if you're covering up his wrongdoing, you get special favors. But if you're peacefully protesting brutality, you get tear gas. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The committee will stand in recess for 5 minutes.
Our great senators. Hi, Chuck. He used to love me when I was a Democrat, you know.